Recently, I heard a new definition of the Democratic Party of the United States. It's a large scale criminal organization for money laundering. Well, I really liked it because, well, it sounds a lot like reality. I'll tell you about Mamdani again today because the first 19 people died. There will be much more, actually, because as they say, the hardest part is getting started, or maybe this is just the beginning. You know how it goes? Bipedal mammals who are mistakenly classified as Homo sapiens, that is, intelligent beings of the humankind or thinking beings, are for the most part incapable of thinking. And they're always very surprised when, looking back, they realize that no, once again, they've been fooled, tricked yet again, once more, with that same machina. By the way, machina, as I found out, is empty husk, the waste left from grains after threshing, which looks like feed on the outside. Machina, that's what politicians feed to the voters. You won't get real grain to peck at. Very few of us can tell the grain from the chaff and don't fall for cheap tricks and bait. The black population in the U.S. falls for the same trick every day, every year, almost every hour. It's the same thing, always the same. They're promised exactly what they want at that moment, and then they're completely ignored. After the voting is over, there's not just no attention, there's nothing at all. Crawl back into your holes. I don't know what they tell them. Yeah, and don't show yourselves until we whistle again so we can promise you the same things and you do the same thing all over again. And as they say, even the periods haven't changed for the 30th time in a row. And the commas too, they're just promised the same thing. They're told the same thing over and over again. They just blindly shout, hooray! Finally, all the previous ones were bad, and finally, here comes the new one. What we're rolling with, that's what he says, that's what he'll do. And they chose him, and then it just kept going and going and going. But now it seems like the blacks have rebelled. Mamdani, in his contempt for them, crossed the line and found the point where they just went wild.
Mayor Zoran Mamdani, yeah, you've completely lost your mind, Mayor. With all due respect, in every campaign speech, in every debate where you spoke, we opened our ears to listen. Now today, hear the words coming from us, do your job, Mayor, and don't touch our taxes.
You can't just go up to him now and say, hey, listen, why aren't you doing anything for us, buddy? The problem with that statement is that that's exactly what they keep doing all the time.
When politicians go to take money from someone else, well, to steal, to act like bandits, yeah, and then give away part of what they've stolen, then Homo supposedly sapiens are happy. And when these same politicians come to rob them, they're outraged and say they could never have imagined that these bandits would come to rob them. And so to speak, from their point of view, something absolutely unbelievable is happening. And as they say, they could never have imagined it. It never occurred to them that the one who robs someone else could also rob them. Because you helped a poisonous snake, let's say, get out of the swamp or put it on a branch, you think that now it won't bite you.
He lied. He doesn't feel anything.
Isn't it obvious?
He lied, he promised to rob others, and suddenly he came to me. What a terrible person he is. He promised to steal from another kindergarten and bring the loot to ours and share it.
The problem with this statement is that this is exactly what they constantly do, right? They go straight to the heart of the African American community and say, listen, we're going to do all these amazing things. And then the first thing they do is ignore your problems. This is a textbook case that happens here all the time. But personally, I think you should probably start looking at other types of candidates. Yeah, because you seem to keep getting the same results by voting for the same thing,
Other candidates. Or maybe just stop voting for thieves, or is that a very complicated and unusual concept that's hard to understand? Not voting for thieves? As soon as someone suggests robbing someone, you don't vote for him. It's hard. I understand that it's hard.
So Zoran Mamdani has been in power for 7 weeks. He's 34 years old. As I already said, let's be honest, he's completely unqualified to run even a Taco Bell, let alone a metropolis like a city with 8.5 million residents, the largest in the country, now under his regime. In just 7 weeks, 19 people have frozen to death.
Why do we say he's to blame for this? It's very simple, just listen. And the further we go, the more astonishing this story will sound. By the way, I have a big request. Please click the bell for the channel right now. The channel needs it, and honestly, you'll get new videos faster, often sensational ones. So, 19 people have already died, and as Bill O'Reilly said, this is just the beginning.
19 human lives. Because Mamdani refused to follow the Code Blue Protocol, even though the Code Blue Protocol has existed for many decades, it is said that when the temperature drops below a certain point, including wind chill, the police take homeless people as well as indigenous people. Or, just those who wander the streets, usually drug addicts or alcoholics, they are taken and placed in shelters. It's a special temporary warming center. Right now, many of these people don't want to go, but the police just take them by force. Mamdani said, no, don't do this. Now he's taking his words back. But that's exactly what happened, and 19 people died. And now you're asking why? Why would anyone, whether a communist, a socialist, a capitalist, why would any mayor not fully implement Code Blue? I don't know, but I do know for sure that this person, Mamdani, is not rational. He's just not like that. All right, I don't know what's on his mind. I've never met him. I don't know. I'm glad I don't live in New York.
I'm also glad, by the way, that I don't live in New York, and Mamdani is one of the reasons for that. I lived there from 1982 to 1984 for about 2.5 years. I bought an apartment on Madison Avenue, not far from Greenwich Village, and it was really great. Theaters, music, nightlife, bars, the city never sleeps. But in that era, they used to clean up the garbage and snow. They collected it, and they didn't reduce the number of police like they do now under Mamdani.
Mamdani now claims that he wants to raise property taxes for 3 million New York residents, mainly for working-class people living in Queens and Brooklyn, on Staten Island, as well as for some residents of the Bronx. So by 10%, or more precisely, by 9.5%. Do you realize how devastating this would be for those people if you raise their property tax like that? And that's like taking away 10% of your assets every year. And he's doing this because he can't afford to pay for his giveaway programs. A distinguishing feature is that he can't afford to pay for free kindergartens, free buses, free meals. He can't do this because the city is already mired in a record deficit, the highest deficit in the country. New York now, just in the everyday life of New York, it took the city 14 days, 2 weeks to clear the snow after the storm, 14 days. And I told you that the unions won't work for this guy. And so, since they couldn't clear the snow or didn't want to, one of the two, and we're talking about less than 2 feet of snow, they had 20 inches. Anyway, the garbage piled up, obviously, and it wasn't removed. What did I say? You knew this would happen. So, if this is just happening at such lightning speed, this decline of the largest city in our country.
Raise taxes on 3 million apartments and houses, most of which belong to workers, small business owners, the middle class. Mamdani himself can't do this either. By the way, he needs a decision from the city council.
The new budget of Mayor Democrat Socialist Mamdani, totaling $127 billion and filled with racial equity, bureaucracy, and six-figure diversity positions, will be paid for by him. By raising taxes and canceling plans to add thousands of New York police officers.
Not everyone shares this opinion.
Think about the elderly who are already living below the poverty line. We have a food shortage problem. People there are just surviving, and that's unacceptable.
He should cut expenses that don't improve the lives of New Yorkers. That's what he should focus on. Not raising taxes, but reducing useless spending.
So I want to give you an update on this whole situation with Mamdani's tax hike and the budget crisis, because to put it simply, right now it's becoming clear that Mamdani is deceiving and lying to you about this, which I know is a big surprise to everyone. But what happened is that people started digging into the details of what's actually in this ridiculous $127 billion budget proposal that Mamdani presented. Keep in mind, this is the very budget that he calls essential, and I'm sorry, but it's not. This is an existential crisis, and we're going to have to raise property taxes for ordinary New Yorkers.
Mamdani says, the expenses I've included in the budget are the bare minimum that city residents need to survive. We need you, not the rich, but just regular working people with salaries, to share so that the poor, the sick, the lazy, and also illegal immigrants have money to pay for hotel rooms, beer, and taxi rides.
There's no other way, since the state budget has $1 billion deficit. We're doing everything we can, but we're very sorry we'll have to raise taxes for the city to keep functioning. That's how it's presented. But if you look at what's actually in that budget, you'll find that it's not true at all. In reality, we see billions of dollars being spent on foolish, wasteful offices like the DEA, just as one example. I know it's so important, right? At the same time, for some reason, the police are being defunded, but not these huge, bloated social services and all that. And this really supports my theory, which I've been actively promoting lately, right? The reason why the Democrats never keep their promise when they say, hey, we might raise your taxes, but we'll make your life better, we'll improve social services. And that never happens because they literally take that extra tax money and spend it on all this ridiculous nonsense, right? Basically, it's money laundering for million-dollar DEA projects, and they don't accomplish anything, and nothing gets done, and all our construction is constantly delayed, and then they keep overcharging the government again and again. Why? Because the Democratic Party is basically a criminal organization for large-scale money laundering. And that's exactly what's happening right here, frankly, with this new state budget that Mamdani is talking about, saying, oh, we can't cut anything else from the budget because then the city will go under.
I like the definition of the Democratic Party, as I already said.
Because the Democratic Party is essentially a criminal organization for large-scale money laundering.
I like it, do you? The Democratic Party of the United States of America is a criminal organization engaged in large-scale money laundering. In my opinion, that's spot on.
Right now in the city, because it looks like several city council leaders are starting to rebel against Mamdani's idiotic proposal to raise the property tax, claiming that it's absolutely necessary. No, it's not needed for the functioning of the government, right? It's needed for your socialist agenda, isn't it? That's basically what's happening here, and essentially they're saying they refuse to vote for it. We'll see what happens on that front. But in short, I don't think it's really such a good policy. Come to power and immediately declare that you're a socialist planning to raise property taxes for everyone.
But Mamdani doesn't give up. If I set my mind to something, I'll definitely do it. Well, I mean, of course, I'll drain the blood of New Yorkers, I will.
With no other choice, the city would have to use the only revenue lever fully under our control. We would have to raise property taxes.
But the city council would have to approve this measure, and Council Speaker Julie Menon says that this proposal shouldn't even be considered. Meanwhile, Hochul, for her part, is unlikely to soften her position since she is facing re-election this year.
You were only given two options. Are you saying that if we don't tax the rich, I'll have to raise property taxes?
I think Tyson is trying to build an army. Remember that volunteer army that helped him get elected? Well, now he wants an army of people who will call their elected officials and yell at the top of their lungs, "Don't raise my taxes."
Well, you know, at that press conference where you were, you asked the mayor if he was really going to raise property taxes. Tell us what he said. And also,
He actually dodged the question.
So, they can't pay their bills. Every time I hear his speech, it pisses me off because you just don't get the main point.
No, it's not Mamdani who doesn't get it. It's you who doesn't understand. He was never going to do for you what you need. He bamboozled you and all the other idiots. Let's break it down by syllables. Bamboozled. One more time. Bamboozled. They fooled the fool by 4 fists. I think that a fist was once used as a unit of volume in sales, like for grain or maybe flour, and to cheat someone by 4 fists meant to really shortchange or rip off the buyer. So the fool fell for it, and that's how New York fell for it too, 4 fists worth. But the Democrats' main goal is to fill the country especially the districts where they have a majority with uneducated freeloaders. So Mamdani is acting like a true son of Marx and Alinsky.
Joe Rogan shared his thoughts on Mamdani's plans about the expenses, which reportedly include $1.2 billion for migrants arriving in New York.
$1 billion to attract those who will replace working Americans who, God forbid, might vote for Republicans or, God forbid, become Trump supporters. He's a psychopath.
I mean, he's a psychopath. You see, that amount for migrants is just insane. There shouldn't be a single dollar for illegal immigrants. Absolutely.
But I don't think it can be absolutely zero, because if they're there, and they will be, you have to feed them. You have to keep them occupied. Do something with them. Literally, if you don't feed them, they'll rob stores, they need it, and people need food. What are you going to do? How are you going to give a migrant a job?
Send him to Guatemala.
Isn't it better to give him food than a job? I don't want them taking jobs from Americans. It's all a mess. But the point is, you can't just throw them out. That's the problem, right? Unless you deport them from the country.
By the way, that was the most popular host in the world, Joe Rogan. He has the sharpest interviews that kings and prime ministers, actors, serial killers, well, basically everyone, dream of doing. And usually they sweat at Joe's, but still, like flies, they flock to him and listen to Joe. Young people and old people, children, liberals, libertarians, basically anyone at all. About illegals, Joe says, Derek, you can't give them anything because that means taking money away from your own people. But you can't not give them anything either. There are so many. 10, 20 million, who knows how many. And they'll go out and rob when they get hungry, so what should we do? And the answer is very simple. What Trump is doing, deport them from the country in as large numbers as possible and as quickly as possible. Perhaps this is the only way to deal with this problem, which is big, really, but not hopeless. This can be dealt with, and that means we will deal with it. Until next time.